Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
It's one thing to make cheese and, naturally let it ferment and eat it from milk that's not pasteurized. It's fermenting. Who needs to pasteurize the milk to make cheese in the first place, for crying in the night? But if I eat cheese that's pasteurized, man, I stuff up instantly. I eat raw cheese, I never get stuffy. And so I can tell you from personal experience time and time again, I'm surprised. I'll eat just the tiniest little bit of mozzarella that's pasteurized. I'm like, man, I'm stuffy, blowing my nose. It's ridiculous. So again, those are the big 4 food allergies. Now, I'm not going to go too far into tomatoes, beef, chocolate, and peanuts, but I wanted to at least talk about peanuts a little bit more. Chocolate we're going to talk about as well, because for a different reason, but peanuts I want to talk about because they did a really cool study called the China study. They gave peanuts and peanut protein to China because their malnourished areas they noticed that they were really sickly, and they figured that it was protein issues. So they needed protein. And we said, hey, we're willing to give you our peanuts and our peanut protein. And so we did that, but all of a sudden we noticed that cancer started going up. And so what they decided to do is they said, hey, when we take the affluent areas of China and they're eating lots of protein and meat and stuff, they have a certain cancer rate in that area. Well, these indigent or poor or kind of starving communities in China, when we gave them peanut protein, their cancer rates rose to match the affluent areas where they got meat and stuff. And so they started thinking that, hey, we think that it's protein possibly causing cancer. So then they went one step further and they said, well, let's feed rats, laboratory rats, protein. Now, what they didn't tell you is that they processed the protein that they gave the rats. And to go from America to China with the protein, do you think it might have taken a little while to get there? It did. Do you think that protein might be affected by the heat and temperature difference of the shipping of all that peanut protein? It did. And so here we're giving kind of rancid proteins and fats to people. And yet we've known since the 30s, 40s, 50s that rancid fats are a big no-no in cancer. Tends to cause a lot of cancer, tends to disrupt our cells. And so even in the end of the cancer or the China study, they said, hey, just because we could take a rat and increase its processed protein and cause cancer, when we reduce that processed protein back down to 5%, the cancer would go away. When we increase that protein back up to 20%, it would get cancer again. We would decrease that protein back to 5%, the cancer would go away. So they kept doing this over the life of this animal, causing cancer, taken away, causing cancer, taken away, just by protein intake. But what they didn't tell you is that was cooked, processed protein. Now, if we took a rat and fed it intestines or a raw meat diet, so to speak, now we have a valid test to see if it's really eating its natural environment protein. Did it really cause cancer? They didn't do that, though. And he said in the end of the book, he goes, I am not advocating vegetarianism, and neither am I in this statement, me, Troy Munson. What I am advocating is that there needs to be better testing, just like he talked about in the book, The China Study. So they said we have a number of data points, but there are flaws just like everything. But we do have something, and we have something profound that I think we need to take a better look at. I totally agree with him that book was the starting point, but there needs to be a lot more stuff with it. So that's peanuts in and of itself. Now I want to talk about chocolate, because this kind of leads me into the next thing. Chocolate is highly processed, and it's pesticide crop. If I eat garbage chocolate that's not organic, I will not say names out there of N-words, But if I eat chocolate that is mainstream, non-organic, they put paraffin waxes and other garbage fats in it, and I will eat that chocolate and I will, within 12 hours, I'll have a pimple. My staff laugh. I'm like, that's not organic chocolate. I say, look, I have a little pimple. And when I eat organic chocolate, I don't have that problem. And so I want you to understand with this analogy or this look at chocolate that sometimes your food allergies are not necessarily the food as they are what's on it. And so let's say that, well, I've mentioned this in podcasts, on my podcast, on iHeartRadio, where my wife and I were eating out, 15 years ago, and we'd have a treat and go out and have a burger. And one day we ate out and we felt like garbage. And we thought, I'm not eating out anymore because I don't know what just happened to our food, but something just happened to our food. And I come to find out about 4 or 5 years later, I get these wisps that they're spraying Roundup on wheat to dry it. So it's already been picked. They spray it on it. It drives the moisture out of the wheat, makes it cheaper for shipping. Great. That's wonderful. Let's just put Roundup on everything. And so I realized that they must have started that at that time, because when we ate that burger with that whole wheat bun, we both felt so bad. It was like toxic poison. And so at that point I said, yeah, whatever just happened to our food, I'm not eating out anymore. So I rarely eat out, if ever. There are a couple organic restaurants that I do enjoy. One of these days I'm going to have to do a podcast on organic restaurants, because you can find them, and it's kind of nice that they're out there. I do definitely support them. It is a wonderful thing. And so when we have a food now that is causing us problems, we located it. Maybe you're already suspicious. Hey, I think it's tomatoes, or I think it's beef, or I think it's this. What we would first do is say, okay, pull it out of your diet for 5 days. That would be a wonderful. If you can only do it for 3 days, so be it. But we want to pull it out and see how you perform. If you're like, hey, you know what I actually do? I'm less tired. I think my elbow, my shoulder feel better. Hey, my guts, they're actually a lot better. And then you go back and eat that food again, and immediately you have a response. Okay? That's a positive test. Now, let's remove it again for a few days. Let that pass. Now let's do an organic source. Let's just see. Hey, I didn't react nearly as bad to the organic source, but still reacted some. Okay, it's still a problem, but it's also the chemical that they're putting on your food. So you have a sensitivity to that too. And from the last talk I did at part 1, allergies, I talked about how many chemicals are in our environment. 40,000 chemicals now. That was last I've Googled. And that wasn't very long ago. So we've got these chemicals that can be very reactive to our body. So let's say for the chocolate, like when I react, all I have to do is eat an organic source. I don't have the issue. But let's say you notice with peanuts, man, it doesn't matter how I do peanuts. But all of a sudden you say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to try those raw peanuts. And you try raw peanuts and you still react. Okay, now I'm going to ferment some. I'm going to soak them in water with sea salt for 24 hours. I'm going to dry them, get them crispy again, maybe even put a little salt on them, then try them again. I'm willing to bet that you may not react that second time. And so somebody out there that has a bit of a peanut allergy, be interesting to test that. And so I don't typically have a peanut allergy. I do notice when I eat them, if they're roasted salted, I react, but am I reacting to the rancid fats that are in the roasted salted peanut because of the roasting process, or is it the peanut lectin that I'm reacting to? So those are things that, am I really concerned about it? No, I just don't eat roasted peanuts because I know the fats are pretty much not good for me. So at this point, I want to talk a little bit about fear. So we talked about these foods, and now, it's like, oh my gosh, should I not eat anything? Maybe I shouldn't eat anything ever again. It got to a point in my life where I actually was hardly eating anything because I was fearful of food. And eventually I thought, this is stupid. Who cares? I guess if the food kills me, it kills me. But I'm not going to live in fear anymore. That's not how I was created or what I was created for. And if in the Bible it says, hey, eat everything. Okay, then Interesting. And interestingly enough, if you go back, it says on Solomon's table, he had not only grass-fed beef, but grain-fed beef. It lists both. I thought, wow, that's pretty fascinating. So go back and check it out. It's pretty cool. And so, there's something for everything. So let's say that we're reacting to beef. And now we say, okay, well, let's make sure that it's organic and grass-fed. And you eat that beef and you're like, hey, I'm okay. Great. It was more the corn that they were probably feeding that, or the other grains, or even the toxins that were on the feed that they were feeding the animal. 50% of the antibiotics in our society is used in grain to feed animals. They just naturally put antibiotics in their feed to try to keep them from being sick. I'm like, why would they do that? That messes up their digestive system, which we need them to process grass so we can actually have healthy meat. I don't know why they do it, but they do. And so, these are some of the things that we have to understand as we go through these food allergies that, hey, I can't have this food. Well, are you sure? Are you sure it's not the chemical? Are you sure it's not just the organic process? But if you get down to the bare minimum, you say, hey, I know somebody who grew the animal and they didn't grain it, and it was organic feed. They just ate grass all the time in a field. They didn't have anything around them, man. It was organic as you could get. I still reacted to it. You have a food allergy. That we know. Now, what a food allergy actually does to us is it kicks our adrenal glands. Why do people like scary movies? Because it gives them a rush. Their adrenals are so weak, they feel so out of it, that it gives them like a coffee buzz almost. And it's why people drink coffee. Their adrenals are a shot. Well, if we eat a food that's allergic to us, it gives our adrenals a jolt and makes us feel good. So we'll be drawn to the foods that we're technically allergic to. Now, those of you that are like, man, I so crave this food all the time, it's probably a food allergy for you. It's not to say that we can't do it in a safe way, but for now, it's probably a food allergy. It's one of my questions I'll ask clients. Tell me what you like to eat. It's probably a food allergy. And so it's a bummer, but I'm going to eventually try to coach them into how do we let go of that food, maybe for an organic form or a better form or something that's equally as good. And I'll give you an example. I like Doritos. I don't eat them, by the way, but I like them. And so there are companies that produce Dorito-like chips that taste pretty good. And so they're organic. And so I'll go after those and I'm like, hey, that corn is okay. I seem to be okay. I don't react to it. I like it. I still don't overeat carbs, but I want to have a couple chips with some salsa on occasion. Can I do that, please? Yes, I can, but I have to do it in a better form if I want to feel good the next day. And feeling good for me is everything. I like sleeping 6-7 hours, waking up rested, feeling great, energetic. Here I've had a full day at the office. It's almost 7 o'clock at night, and I still have tons of energy. I'll take that any day. I don't need to eat food that's going to make me drag for the last 10 hours of my day and make me feel like crap. I'm not interested. So for you out there, if that's okay to you, you go right ahead and eat your food. But if you suspect a food allergy, that's what we're going to do. So with fear involved, we're going to say, it is okay. I can let go of some things. I can challenge some things. I'm going to be okay here. It's not the end of the world that I can't eat something or that I have to do it in smaller doses, so to speak, so that I don't react to it. So I want you to be cautious that way. If you suspect food allergies and you want more information or you're trying to figure out, hey, how can I do this better? Great. The moment that we do remove some of the food allergies, we often do away with inflammation. So those of you that are wanting a little bit of help, I'm going to talk about with you inflammatory markers. So let's say you come to me with a food allergy and you want more information and we say, hey, let's do some blood work. Things I'm going to look for in blood work. I'm going to look for inflammatory markers like alkaline phosphatase, LDH, which is lactic acid dehydrogenase. They're markers. Sed rate, which is sedimentation rate. How fast does your blood settle down? How much fibrous materials around your blood cells and it settles out of fluid really fast. That's your sedimentation rate. It shouldn't be fast. You shouldn't have all those proteins hanging around your blood that are blocking your blood cells or coagulating them and not exchanging oxygen well. That's what food allergies do. They basically destroy our red blood cells, and now we feel like garbage because there's more inflammation in our body. We're not carrying oxygen as well. Our blood